practices sound and our inward attitudes right, while our idea of God is erroneous and inadequate. He goes on to say, what comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. He says a right conception of God is basic, not only to systematic theology, but to practical Christian living as well. It is to worship what the foundation is to the temple. Where it is inadequate or out of plumb, the whole structure must sooner or later collapse. And so he encourages us to think rightly. He says in this closing of this first chapter, the heaviest obligation lying upon the Christian church today is to purify and elevate her concept of God until it is once more worthy of him and of her. So let's pause with Nehemiah, and just from what you know from God's word, who he is, and just spend a few moments to worship him and set our prayers and plans upon the attributes of God. You know, one of the attributes of God is his compassion. And as we got done praying for those fears, you know, one of the most precious promises of the Bible is that he gathers all our tears in a bottle and forgets not one of them. Father, forgive these sins I confessed to thee. Forgive the secret sins I do not see. Guide me, love me, and my keeper be. Dear Lord, forgive. Let us confess. Prayers of deliverance from your enemies that seek you as a believer, or perhaps the enemies you see confronting this congregation, or the enemies that you see spiritually in the world today. That could be a lot of time of prayer, I'm sure. But what the Lord immediately lays upon your heart, let's lift that to him today. Father, some of those enemies are kind of internal. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and not to fall back to confession again, Lord, because we know you are a forgiving.
Lord, deliver us from false gods and a broken world.
As the disciple makers, that we would count it such a privilege to share our faith with others. We would use your word to us as first and foremost to help others grow in their faith. Let us be known as the encouragers of the faith, Lord, throughout Las Cruces and to the ends of the earth.
And as those who live out the faith in the world and show that love in tangible ways, who become the hands and feet of Jesus. Because you are the heads of the church. Without them, we cannot do anything. We want to see the church
on